There's nothing like an Alaska cruise, and today I've got 50 of the best Alaska cruise tips for a perfect vacation up next. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. An Alaska cruise is so different from any other cruise out there, whether it's the Caribbean or Europe. There's a whole new adventure waiting for you in Alaska, and I want to share with you a ton of easy tips and tricks to make your cruise fantastic. And before you even get into this video, let's make it really easy for you. If you just want to download all these tips, I got the hookup if you go to RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com/Alaska tips. You can download all of them in an easy PDF format. But let's get into the video with our tips, starting with number one, figure out the best time for your Alaska cruise. The Alaska cruise season generally runs between May and September. While many offerings and experiences on an Alaska cruise will be similar no matter what month you choose, there are a few differences to consider. May and September are definitely the shoulder season. During these months, you're going to find fewer families and passengers on board and lower prices. In addition, you may have a greater chance of seeing the northern lights as fall begins in September. The most popular months, though, for Alaska is June, July, and August. These months are when daylight hours are the longest, wildlife viewing opportunities are the greatest, and the weather is the warmest. So it's really a matter of debating, do you want to save some money? Would you rather deal with crowds, pricing, all that good stuff? Number two, research the best ship for you. Royal Caribbean has both large and small cruise ships that visit Alaska, each with their own benefits and drawbacks. Larger ships will offer more onboard activities and venues, whereas smaller ships are able to fit into more destinations along the Inside Passage. Taking a look at what you hope to see and experience while on an Alaska cruise is an important first step before booking any ship. Are you traveling with kids and looking for the most onboard activities? If so, selecting a Quantum class ship is going to be right for you. The Quantum class ships offer the Seaplex, an indoor sports court, and activities like bumper cars, soccer, pickleball, and more. They also have an indoor pool, as well as more bars, dining options, and entertainment. The smaller ships, which tend to be the Radiance class cruise ships, are a lot smaller, but don't let that deter you from choosing them. Many people find that cruising in Alaska on a smaller ship comes with its own benefits. Smaller ships are able to fit into more ports, meaning you could visit destinations like Hubbard Glacier and Tracy Arm Fjord. And like Royal Caribbean's larger ships, these small ships still offer fantastic viewing opportunities with floor-to-ceiling windows and plenty of outdoor deck space. You also really should consider a balcony cabin. If a balcony stateroom is in your budget, then I really recommend booking one to enjoy the opportunity to have a private area to enjoy the natural beauty of Alaska anytime you want. There's no denying that having easy access and private space, especially when near a glacier, is a really lovely perk of being in a balcony. Balcony staterooms come at a higher cost than an interior room, obviously, but for many people, it's well worth the cost. And my next tip is actually, you could instead save some money with an interior room. While having a balcony cabin is super nice, it is not essential as you might think to have for an Alaska cruise. You can still have an amazing cruise by depending purely on public areas to enjoy the view and saving money and by booking an inside cabin. Royal Caribbean ships feature ample deck space to enjoy the view any time of day. Even when near a glacier, you ought to find plenty of great viewing opportunities. Moreover, the price of a balcony room may be much more expensive than an inside room, and you may decide that it's better to simply go with the cheaper room and use that money saved to invest in an amazing shore excursion. The bottom line is, look at all the room categories, but don't assume you need to get a balcony room, but if you can afford it, great, go for it. And if not, you're not doing yourself a disservice without one. My next tip is to definitely book with a travel agent. This is something I share all the time here on this channel. A travel agent should cost you nothing extra, and they can provide you extremely valuable help and support during the booking process. Being able to ask your travel agent questions and get them resolved without having to take time out of your day to contact Royal Caribbean is going to save you so much time. Plus, good travel agents have an abundance of knowledge about Royal Caribbean, Alaska, and the cruise industry, so they're able to answer questions you may have about your upcoming cruise. Next up, book your dining and drink packages in advance. Just like any Royal Caribbean cruise, it's really important to pre-book any dining or drink packages for your cruise via the Royal Caribbean Cruise Planner website. Booking early really allows you to save money on things like the drink package, dining packages, and more. Speaking of booking early, in Alaska, you really want to book excursions in advance. The same rules that apply to dining and beverage packages also apply to shore excursions, because it's really important to book your tours well in advance. In fact, because popular shore excursions often risk selling out, it's even more important to book shore excursions ahead of time compared to even dining or beverage packages. Whether you're booking through Royal Caribbean directly or through an outside provider, be sure to research what activities and excursions are recommended in each port. While some ports may be the best for whale watching, others may offer best historic or cultural opportunities. My next tip is how to find the best itinerary for an Alaska cruise. And really, when I say best, that's a very relative term because it's important to have an understanding of what options are available. Some cruise ships leave from Seattle, whereas others leave from Vancouver, and some are one-way sailings to Alaska, while others are round-trip, and some itineraries visit more cruise ports than others. Browsing through all of Royal Caribbean's Alaska cruise offerings is a really good starting point for researching the different options available. Alternatively, you could also talk to your travel agent to discuss which options might work best for you, depending on what you want to see, what's important to you, and of course who you're traveling with, budget, etc. If you listen to one tip in this entire video, make sure it's this one, and that is fly into your departure port a day early. No matter where in the world your cruise departs from, it is super important to arrive to your departure city at least one day prior to the cruise. Flight delays and cancellations, missed connections, traffic, unexpected car issues, and weather can negatively affect your chance of getting to the cruise port on time. So, arrive one day ahead of time at least, stay in the hotel the night before your cruise, and that way you have a good buffer if you run into any unexpected delays. Also, you should really know the differences between Alaska and a Caribbean itinerary. Now, this may seem obvious, but we're going to go with this on this one. Cruising to Alaska is a very port-intensive itinerary with shore excursions that cost way more money and have far fewer party events. Unlike the Caribbean, where the places you visit can sometimes be secondary, an Alaska cruise is really about where you're going on land, and the onboard experience can almost feel like an afterthought. Something else you should really consider if you really want like the best Alaska cruise experience is to extend your Alaska cruise with a cruise tour. Royal Caribbean offers expanded journeys to Alaska with its cruise tour program. A cruise tour will take you to incredible destinations that no cruise ship can visit. From the coastline to the heart of the frontier, a Royal Caribbean Alaska cruise tour offers a sea package and a land package together that offers some really cool must-sees. Either before or after your cruise, you can book a cruise tour that combines a land tour, which usually runs 3 to 7 nights. Popular destinations on these land tours include Denali National Park for wildlife viewing, Talkeetna, best place for Denali views, and Fairbanks. Every Alaska cruise tour includes knowledgeable adventure specialists who act as guides, historians, and concierge, and they're by your side for the entirety of the land tour, providing insider tips and local perspective. You should also expect on your Alaska cruise abnormal hours in ports. Most cruises tend to have port stops somewhere between like 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. at the latest. Alaska cruises, however, often have more abnormal hours. Some port stops, for example, may be between 4 p.m. and midnight, or you might have 2 stops in one day. Most ports will stick to the more normal hours, so to speak, but if you're looking at an itinerary and you're shocked to see such bizarre hours for your port stops, don't be too alarmed. Cruises to Alaska run primarily during the summer months when daylight hours are much longer, so it's possible to have a walking tour around the port at 9 or 10 p.m. in the peak of summer while it's still enjoying the daylight. I should also mention it's a really good idea to purchase travel insurance for your Alaska cruise. Even though the insurance plans on most U.S. citizens will work in Alaska because you're within the U.S., it's still a really good idea to purchase travel insurance prior to your cruise. Travel insurance can cover travel delays and cancellations, lost luggage or valuables, medical coverage, emergency transportation, and more. It's a good safety net. Yeah, you're probably not going to use it, but if you ever need it, boy, it really comes in handy. Do yourself a favor, invest in travel insurance for your Alaska cruise. Another really good tip is to be flexible in ports. Your cruise will stop at a variety of ports in Alaska, with some stopping in Canada as well. Common ports include Ketchikan, Juneau, Skagway, Sitka, Haines, and Hubbard Glacier. Where your visit depends on your ship's size and itinerary and embarkation port. However, it's important to remain flexible and understanding your itinerary can change. Alaska's weather conditions may lead to high seas, storms, heavy winds, especially if you're traveling during the shoulder season, like early May or late September. The day you planned in Sitka, as an example, could be replaced by a stop in Ketchikan, or perhaps ship is unable to sail further into a passage for a glacier sighting. The majority of sailings do go as planned, but being flexible is really important. Next up, find a great spot to watch glaciers and scenery. A unique aspect of an Alaska cruise is that you can see land for the majority of the sailing. They mainly sail through Alaska's Inside Passage, where fjords, waterfalls, and mountains dot the landscape on both sides of the ship. On the first day or two, we really recommend exploring the ship to make note of areas that you can watch scenery once you get to Alaska. The pool deck is a really popular option, but you may find other hidden gems throughout the ship. You're also going to want to wake up early and stay up late because traveling to Alaska will have different daylight hours than what you're used to in a Caribbean cruise, especially if you're traveling in the middle of summer. With as many as 19 hours of daylight in the summer months, don't forget to wake up early and stay up late to be amazed by the scenery around you in Alaska. And also, this is a hard one for a lot of first timers, but try not to worry about the weather. It will rain while you're in Alaska. There's no getting around that, but it's also not the end of the world. Weather forecasts don't always match what you'll experience. Be prepared for changing weather daily. You really should be prepared for varying clothing options, which is really why wearing layers is super important in Alaska. And when it does rain, give it a few minutes because it generally doesn't last that long. Take it all in because it might actually end up, starting out sunny, then rain, then cloudy, then sunny, then rain again. It's just, you never can tell exactly, but don't worry about the rain as much as you possibly can, and certainly don't let it stop you from enjoying your day. Another really important tip is to definitely bring your motion sickness remedies. Depending on the weather conditions outside and the time of year you sail to Alaska, you may encounter some choppy seas. While most days should be pretty smooth sailing, it's always a good idea to plan in advance if you're prone to motion sickness. This is especially true if you plan to book a whale watching tour, as many guests will feel more movement on a smaller vessel. Something else different about an Alaska cruise is you should take advantage of port lectures. Royal Caribbean offers complimentary lectures by higher educational staff on the history and culture of the places you're going to visit. It's easy to overlook these types of offerings, so many other activities and things to do on a typical Royal Caribbean cruise, but do yourself a favor and check them out. Also, this may go without saying, but truly relax and enjoy the scenery. Even with all the fun activities you'll find on a Royal Caribbean ship, it's always a great idea to spend time sitting back and relaxing on an Alaska cruise. Sailing through the Alaska Inside Passage comes with stunning views in every direction. And while it can be tempting to book a full day of fun activities on board, don't forget to take in some time relaxing. Here's another good tip, though, for the things you do want to do on board the ship, which is book shows and dining on the first day. Just like any Royal Caribbean cruise, be sure to book your specialty dining and entertainment on the first day of your cruise to ensure you can reserve the days and times that work best for you. As soon as you get on board, connect to the ship's Wi-Fi, open the Royal Caribbean app, and then scroll through the calendar and reserve any entertainment you're interested in. Don't worry, you don't need to purchase a Wi-Fi package to use the Royal Caribbean app. And if you bought a dining package, well, then definitely head to the restaurants on board to reserve all specialty dining days and times for the week. Another good tip is to bring cards or board games with you because you're going to encounter some downtime on an Alaska cruise, especially compared to what you might experience during warmer weather in the Caribbean. While there are certainly enough activities and entertainment options to keep you occupied, some people like to spend time playing cards or games with fellow passengers, especially considering that it might be cooler or wetter outside or both than you might be used to. And one last onboard tip is to confirm your main dining room dining times and options, because when you booked your cruise, you should have selected a dining time, either traditional or My Time dining. Additionally, if you'd prefer a private table as opposed to dining with others, it's a good idea to speak with the staff in the main dining room on embarkation day to ensure that this is the case. Let's hit up the shore excursion tips next for Alaska. Number one, book a whale watching tour because whale watching tours are arguably the most popular shore excursion to book in Alaska, and for good reason, because you get to view the largest mammals on Earth in their natural habitat, and it's a remarkable experience. Now, whale watching tips are not cheap, but they won't necessarily break the bank either. Some ports are better than others for whale watching, and some months bring a higher chance to spot whales than others. Also, speaking of wildlife, you also want to check out the other amazing wildlife in Alaska. Whale watching is super popular, but don't overlook being able to see other animals like bears, eagles, salmon, sea lions, sea otters, and other wildlife. In Sitka, check out the Fortress of the Bear, which is a bear rescue center located in the city center. In Ketchikan, walk around Creek Street for the chance to spot sea otters playing in the creek. And when you're on a bus tour or walking around town, be sure to look up into the trees because you can usually spot plenty of eagles. Something else worth checking out in your Alaska cruise is Alaska's native history. While Alaska cruises are famous for providing stunning views, don't miss the opportunity to learn about Alaska's history and culture while visiting the state. Royal Caribbean offers shore excursions with a focus on the history and culture in its Alaska ports. As an example, one of these tours is the Native Cultural and Historical Tour in Sitka, where guests get to see the confluence of Native culture, Russian culture, and American influences. And if you're in Alaska, I really think it's super important to visit your glaciers. I mean, geez, this should be like on your top priority list. Because while your cruise may visit places like Hubbard Glacier or Endicott Arm and Dawes Glacier, you may also want to explore glaciers up close in port. My favorite is Mendenhall Glacier in Juneau, and it's one of the most visited glaciers on an Alaska cruise as it's easily accessible via bus or taxi from the cruise port. While at Mendenhall Glacier Recreational Area, you can walk around the walking trails and check out Nugget Falls, which is one of the best waterfalls you can see, super easy to get to. If you're looking for a truly once-in-a-lifetime experience, well, book a helicopter tour that brings you actually to the top of Glacier. Another idea is also to go on a day hike, because Alaska is a dream for active cruisers. There's a lot of magnificent nature and mountains to explore. All Alaska cruises offer fantastic day hike opportunities, from really easy paved trails to truly challenging ones. We talked about glaciers as a really fun thing to do, but there's also something else you should check out if you want to maybe combine a more active way to see glaciers, and that is go kayaking. Because kayaking brings visitors to picturesque destinations along the coastline. Some kayaking excursions allow you to get close to glaciers, and you may even spot wildlife on the tour. Kayaking is a relatively low-impact activity, making it a really great choice for those looking for an active excursion that also allows them to relax and enjoy the scenery. And one other way to see everything is to maybe go on a biking or a scooter excursion. If you're looking to explore Alaska in a unique way, well, two wheels might be the choice for you, because bike tours and rentals are available in most Alaska ports. A really fun one is the Bike and Brew Glacier View Tour in Juneau, which combines a bike ride with a beer tasting. If riding a bike sounds like too active for you, consider renting an electric scooter in Skagway through Skagway Scooters to explore all of Skagway and the surrounding area. Let's talk food in Alaska, because one big mistake that we made on our first Alaska cruise was not taking the time to research where to eat in port. Alaska has some amazing local cuisine, and there's a lot of other pretenders too, so you want to find the really good stuff. So here's a few food and drink recommendations for your Alaska cruise. In Ketchikan, the Alaska Fish House is a really popular seafood place located just a few blocks from the port. In our experience, a long line formed during around lunchtime, but the extremely fresh fish is worth the visit. In Skagway, on a chilly Alaska day, not much fills the spot more than a doughy, sugary, and warm piece of Alaska fry bread. Similar to an elephant ear, Alaska fry bread is a popular snack in the state, and the best place to try it is the Klondike Doughboy in Skagway. Each piece of fry bread is fried to order, and it's guaranteed to warm you up no matter what the weather is like outside. And then in Juneau and Sitka, due to Alaska's historical and geographical connection to Russia, you can find Russian influences in the cuisine here. A restaurant to taste Russian flavors is Pelmeni, which is located in both Juneau and Sitka. Pelmeni offers steamed Russian dumplings in two flavors, beef or potato. The dumplings are then topped with butter, curry, hot sauce, and cilantro, which really is an incredible flavor combination. Just like eating, drinking can also be a way to learn more about the culture of Alaska. Our recommendation is to plan shore excursions for the morning and spend the afternoon walking around the port to try the local food and drinks. Dotted along most Alaska cruise ports are small historic saloons filled with local history, and drinking at a saloon is a quintessential part of visiting any small town in Alaska. Speaking of drinking in town, if you're a beer lover, man, there's such good beer in Alaska. A variety of local craft breweries are located in most ports, offering the perfect place to wind down after a busy day. My top recommendations in Ketchikan are the Bowden Street Brewing Company, Juneau, the Barnaby Brewing Company, and in Skagway, either the Skagway Brewing Company or Klondike Brewing Company. Something you might not think about, but if your cruise visits Skagway, you can actually get a chance to visit Canada's Yukon Territory, which is just 15 miles from the center of town. The Yukon Territory, like much of Alaska, offers rugged terrain, fascinating culture, and breathtaking scenery. You can opt to visit the Yukon Territory by renting a car or motorcycle, booking an excursion, or traveling on the White Pass Yukon Railway. Something else fun to look at is Alaska's Russian history, because the United States purchased Alaska from Russia in 1867. Before the purchase, though, Russia really had a big influence on the state, bringing architecture, food, and religion to the region. Visiting Alaska today offers a chance to learn more about Russia's impact on this area. And the best port to experience Russia's Alaska history is definitely Sitka, which was the former capital of Russian Alaska. From the Orthodox cathedrals to Barnouth Castle State Historic Site, where the formal transfer of Russia to the U.S. occurred, you're sure to get a glimpse of the state's dynamic history while in Sitka. My next Alaska tip is to pack a snack with you while on your excursion, because you may find yourself further out in nature and more active than what you normally book on a Caribbean cruise. Packing granola bars, trail mix, or even the small boxes of cereal you can get with room service is a really good idea. And also, I don't know if this goes without saying, but really and truly, get off the ship in every port. Regardless of how bad the weather is outside, or if you've been there before, always get off the ship when you can. Even when you don't have anything planned, just walking around the historic port towns can be a nice way to spend a few hours. If it's cold and rainy, go to a local seafood restaurant, saloon, coffee shop, or brewery and immerse yourself in the town's culture while tasting delicious food and drink. Let's share some packing tips for Alaska, starting with bring an all-weather jacket. Given its northerly position and varied geography, I think it's a really good idea to have a very flexible jacket. Now, there's a lot of good choices to consider out there, but you really want an all-weather jacket so that way you can always remain warm and dry. Some of my favorites are Columbia's Bugaboo line of jackets with a fleece interchange, and the North Face girls or boys Vortex Tri-Climate jackets. Equally important, if not more important, is wearing the right kind of shoes because it does get cold and wet in Alaska, and nothing is worse than having wet and cold feet. So having the right footwear will make sure you can enjoy your day in port. Now, rugged hiking boots are not totally necessary unless you're actually going to go hiking in Alaska. For walking around Alaska's towns and visiting popular spots like Mendenhall Glacier, sneakers should suffice, but make sure they have good grip and, if possible, at least water resistant. That would be really helpful. Something else you should pack for Alaska are binoculars because there's some amazing wildlife all around you. You don't need to go crazy with like some fancy binoculars out there, but being able to zoom in on a bald eagle resting or sea lion swimming is worth every penny. On our recent Alaska cruise, we actually got the Ocker, I don't know if it's pronounced correctly, OCCER compact binoculars. They were $35 on Amazon and they worked wonders. The best strategy for what to wear in Alaska is all about layers. Layers allow you to be prepared for any kind of weather. In general, every day of your cruise in Alaska while in port, you're going to want to have 3 layers. A base layer, which is your t-shirt and jeans, a warm layer, which is a fleece or a down jacket or sweater, and then your waterproof layer, which is a thin waterproof jacket that's suitable for when it rains. That way, you can always take off a layer or put it back on depending on what's happening with the weather. Also, there are some important accessories you can bring with you. Hats, gloves, and even sunglasses, believe it or not, are really important. While you may picture Alaska as being rainy and cloudy, you'll be surprised how helpful sunglasses are on sunny days. Not only is the sun shining on you, but the light will be reflected off glaciers and snow, which makes sunglasses really helpful. And if all this sounds really expensive, one of my favorite tips is actually to buy used clothing instead. Instead of buying an all-new wardrobe, go on eBay because there's a lot of great items on there, like a quality jacket as an example. Buying one that's gently used on eBay could save you a lot of money, especially for kids because you know you're going to use it for this cruise and then they're going to outgrow it by next year. In addition, check if there are any used outdoor gear stores in your area. These consignment shops can be an excellent place to find quality outdoor clothing at a much lower price. And then, of course, don't overpack too much. I mean, packing for Alaska can really feel overwhelming. I get it. But from puffy jackets to rain gear, boots, dress clothes, and swimsuits, it can be easy to fill up like your suitcase in about 2 seconds. One of the big important lessons from cruising in Alaska is to pack much less than you think you'll use, especially while, of course, relying on the essentials. As the weather in Alaska is colder than on a Caribbean cruise, you may find that your clothes stay cleaner longer. You're not going to sweat through them nearly as much. And you may also find yourself wearing nearly the same exact outfit every day. And along those lines, our next tip is, remember, you can always do laundry on board your ship. If you're concerned that you're not going to have enough or your clothes get dirty, all Royal Caribbean cruise ships offer a laundry service. Now, it does cost extra, but let me tell you something. While not the cheapest option out there, the convenience of having clothes washed midway through the cruise and packing lighter can be well worth it. Here's now a couple things you want to bring and don't bring on a cruise. Number 1, bring a waterproof or water-resistant day pack with you. It's always a good idea to have like some sort of a bag with you when you go ashore, especially when visiting Alaska. You're going to need somewhere to put your sweatshirt when it gets too warm or your phone when it starts to rain. So bringing a waterproof or water-resistant day pack will really help a lot. Speaking of rain, don't bring an umbrella. It might seem tempting to do so, but it's actually more cumbersome and less useful than you might think. Instead, make sure you have a hood on that all-weather jacket that we talked about earlier. And believe it or not, you really should pack a swimsuit just in case. You'd be surprised actually, but there are opportunities to go swimming on your cruise. Now, number 1, it actually could be warm on your cruise, especially if you're going during those summer months like July or August. But in addition to that, there's also indoor spots to go to. First of all, you've got hot tubs, and no matter what temperature is outside, the hot tub temperature is always quite warm. And in addition to that, you have the adults-only solarium. And in Alaska, when you've got cold weather, Royal Caribbean does allow children into the solarium during certain hours of the day because the main pool essentially is useless. Anyway, bring bathing suits with you. It'll actually be more useful than you might think. And of course, don't forget to pack the usual stuff you might need on a cruise like dinner outfits, formal wear, lounge wear, and pajamas. And something else I don't think is really necessary to bring is a super expensive camera. I know you're going to Alaska, you want to get amazing shots of the glaciers and the animals you're going to see, but truly, like, an over-the-top camera is not totally necessary. If you have a decent, like, phone, as in a phone that came out in the last 2 or 3 years, it's probably going to be just as good for you, unless you're planning on creating, like, some amazing, like, wall-size prints at your house. Any new iPhone or Android will be able to take really good photos with you, and it'll save you a lot more money than trying to invest in a DSLR or some sort of a mirrorless camera. And my last Alaska cruise tip is if you forget a piece of clothing, like a waterproof coat or sweatshirt, don't worry, there are plenty of souvenir shops available at every port. You can purchase a variety of these things. So that way, if it's a little cooler or a little warmer than you expected and you don't have the right clothing for it, you can usually find something in one of the souvenir shops. Granted, most of them are going to probably have the word Alaska on it, but hey, it's a good souvenir, and you'll always remember getting that souvenir on the trip. There you go, 50 Alaska cruise tips. Hopefully, these help make your trip to Alaska so much better. Let me know in the comments below, what are your top tips for Alaska if you've been there before? Looking forward to reading your tips, suggestions, and secrets. While you're down below our video, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. That way YouTube lets you know we have a brand new video to share. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.